Okay, welcome everyone to today's Your Space session, family space session, so one for families. I'm scared of the doctor and the dentist too. And we've got Michelle McVitie here from Ron Joyce, and we're thrilled to have you here as well. And I'll just hand things over to you, Michelle.
Wonderful. Okay, welcome everybody. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll do my best to go through them. So we're going to talk about the dentist and the doctor and all those other procedures that your children might be going to. So here's a possibility of things and people, places that may be scary for your children. And how do we support them? So we will go through all that. And just knowing that the majority of people don't enjoy these things. However, really trying to figure out what's underneath the fear, how we can support them, and then having conversations and being open with the staff as well, so you can work together with your child. Because I don't think I know anybody that's lining up to go to the dentist or to get a needle. However, we can make the process a little bit better. So communication is key and support. So talk about it, educate, provide coping strategies. So a lot of parents tend to not talk about it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to make it a surprise. And it's a horrible surprise to show up somewhere and think, I have to see a doctor, or what's going to be happening here. And then their imaginations go wild. And if they're anxious, they think of the worst case scenarios. And it's just not fun to be surprised to go somewhere that's not pleasant. So being able to talk about it, educating your children on what's going to be happening, and providing a way for them to handle their big emotions in a helpful way. And that is part of creating a plan. We will talk a little bit about exposure, and that just means that it's just practice and that they may need to practice those things a little bit more, which is kind of tough. However, we can be imaginative and creative, and again, making it through play. As a child life specialist, we did a lot of play-based medical play. So normalizing it, and all those kits that you have, and you can make up your own stuff, pull those things out, because practicing and playing, and it really makes it normalized. And then thoughts will come up. Maybe some of the worries might come up while you're playing. And just be very patient. Being patient is important. We get frustrated. We think, just get this done and over with. People are watching. It's not a big deal. But for them it is, and they're having a hard time. They're not trying to give you a hard time. So trying to give them some of that support and trying to stay calm through it is what they really need. So we're going to talk about all these things in more depth. Okay. So what exactly will be happening? And be appropriate with what you are sharing. What will they see? Where are they going? Who are they going to meet? And what will it feel like? So we don't always have those answers, but if they're going to have surgery, we can talk about the operating room. We can talk about the sleeping medicine. We can talk about what it would feel like like when they wake up. I remember prepping children for surgery, and tonsils were not fun, and that we would tell them that it would be uncomfortable, but they're going to give medicine, and the more drinking, the better, because when it doesn't feel good, they don't want to drink, right? So kind of prepping them for some of those things, and maybe asking, if you can have a choice, would you rather have a purple popsicle or a banana popsicle, and seeing, trying to give them some kind of choice. But acknowledge the feelings, and it's not fun for them to go through that. So just to say, don't worry about it, but I am worried about it, so now I'm confused. So what will help them? And just understanding that you're going to have to tolerate a little bit of discomfort, maybe a lot of discomfort, because we can't practice these kinds of procedures, and a lot of times it's the first time. But keeping that in mind, for your children, and where they're coming from will help you be able to support them, and be more empathetic to their struggle. The other thing too, in child life, we talk a lot about language, and there's a lot of books, children's books, that will say a shot, right? So you're going to get a shot. And it's like, what do you mean a shot? What does that mean? So instead, can we say the actual word needle, or maybe a poke? Where we're not going to shoot you. What does that mean? So even when you're reading books, just be mindful that maybe you're going to change some of the language, because maybe there's a book that you're reading that's a children's book and they're using this kind of language, and it can be a little intimidating. When they're going for surgery or dental procedures and we say put to sleep, we put dogs to sleep and they don't come back, right? Things that we don't think about. So we can talk about sleeping medicine. One of my colleagues used to call it silly juice because it was the conscious sedation. So the conscious sedation would kind of make them like really relaxed, but they weren't completely asleep, right? So, it's just finding some of those terms that the children, you're not lying, but you're not using things like shot and put to sleep. Blood pressure cuff, and that one's a tough one because it goes around their arm. So we just say that we're going to put this around your arm, and it's going to give your arm a hug, because that's what it is. I mean, it's a tight squeeze, but it does give your arm a hug. And then the stretcher. So we can set bed on wheels because is it really stretching us? So some kids, it's not going to bother them, but if you do have a sensitive child, being mindful of the language that you're using and how you can kind of support them with that. So what are they scared of? And having those conversations are really important. And sometimes you don't know until we get there that it is going to be a worry for them. So when you've had a bad experience, it's really important to talk about it afterwards. So sometimes what happens is it's done, it's over with, so we're not going to think about it anymore. But actually, once you're and you're not doing it right after. I mean, we're not doing it in the car right afterwards, but maybe a day or two later, we're going to go back and say, hey, so the last time we went to the doctor, we had, seemed like it was really scary for you, or you're really upset when this happened or that happened. Help me understand what's going on. So trying to get them to open up about what would be the worst thing that would happen. And the answers to some of these things that are on the slide are because these are the answers that I've gotten from children, right? Where we're just like, okay, help me understand a little bit. So I remember working with one boy that was hospitalized and blood pressure is what we do, right? The nurses come in and check your blood pressure on a regular basis. Well, he thought the blood pressure cuff could possibly rip his arm off, right? So I was like, wow, so do you think that the nurses would come in here and put something on your arm and it would actually have your arm come right off because it's squeezed so tight? And then, he was probably around 10, and he was just like, oh, right. And this is what we do with anxiety. We have to kind of say, where's the proof? Help me understand. What's the possibility of this actually happening? And do you think that a nurse would come in and put that on your arm if that was going to be the damage, right? So getting them to kind of think about that a little bit. Taking blood. Do they think that they're going to have all their blood taken away? Like, what's going to happen? We're just taking a little bit, and your body actually always is making new blood, so you won't run out. We don't have to get into all the details of, you could run out of blood, of course, if you got in a car accident or something like that, but we're not going to talk about that for blood work. That your body they're only going to take what they need, and your body always makes more. Will I wake up in surgery? I remember a teenager telling me all these stories about waking up in surgery, and and they make movies. They made a movie about this, and I think, oh geez, don't do that, right? And somebody's saying like, wow, I know somebody, and there's always that urban myth of somebody waking up. And so it's just having those conversations and saying, so you've got in that room, you have a sleeping doctor or anesthesiologist, however you want to call it. They have gone to become a doctor, and then they go to become an anesthesiologist, which is another 7 years of school, right? So they learn a lot, and that's why they weigh you and they know what your height is. So they make sure that they give you the medicine. So their job is to make sure that you got the right medicine. And then you've got other doctors and nurses in there that will be doing the procedure. So we're all in this together. And if it didn't work, do you think that we would continue having hospitals having surgery, right? So kind of doing a little bit of that, but not putting them down and saying that's silly, or why would you say that, or don't worry about it. It's something that they're worried about. And sometimes just validating the fact that it's scary, that we don't know what it's going to be. So how can we help turn the volume down a little bit on that stress? Because the thoughts we can work with, but then sometimes our body just takes over. So what's going to help us feel calmer? What part of the procedure bothers them? Like is it the tourniquet? It's really, really tight. Sometimes they can put something underneath the tourniquet, or the nurse can kind of count that down. And what are those bad experiences that they've had in the past, and how can we do better the next time and acknowledge those things that didn't go well? So this is a lot of work, especially if your children chronically have to go to the hospital, because there's probably been some bad experiences because they're stressed and they have to get pinned down sometimes, and it's not fun. So working together is really, really important. So what will help? Depending on the age of the child, they may not know what's going to help. But let's work on this together, and I'm here to support you. You also want to advocate for your child and work with the staff. If you're going in, can you call ahead of time? Can you get some information? When you do go in, and whoever comes in to do the procedure, can you go over things or say, can I be in the room, or can we try this comfort hold? And I'm going to go over comfort holds. Can I play music? Are we able to bring in a stuffy? All those kinds of things that might be helpful. And then how can we work on this together? My child likes it when you count. So can you count before you do the procedure, just before you start, or whatever it is? And who will they find helpful as well? Because sometimes parents have their own phobias. They've had their own bad experiences, and, they're super stressed, and that energy, is really tough to contain. When our child is stressed, then we're stressed. So maybe it needs to be somebody else bringing them to the procedure that can be more of a support to them. So again, making sure that you are coping well, asking for help yourself, bring a friend if you need to, have someone else go with you, and also permission to parent. I think sometimes what happens is, I've seen this a lot in inpatient when kids were hospitalized. The parents feel bad, and sometimes the kids get a little nasty, right? They kind of take over. I'm sick, I'm not feeling well. And then boundaries are kind of crossed. Kids are kind of pushing limits. So, of course you want to be gentle and empathetic, but it's okay to set boundaries and expectations as well. Even when your child is struggling, it's not okay that they're screaming and yelling and kicking people in the faces, right? So that's why we want to be a little more proactive. So finding some books that are helpful. The Usborne books, I just like them. I love the illustrations. I love the explanations. I'm not a rep. I don't get any kickback from them, but they are great. And again, I found a lot of these online. So it's finding the right fit, looking at them, seeing what's going on. And I like this one because it shows the little, the chair, the light up top, kind of seeing what actually will be happening. So being able to see those pictures is important. And again, reading about it, normalizing it. That's what kids need, is they need that repetition. We tend to not want to talk about it. Let's not go there, but we actually want to talk more about it, and let the thoughts and emotions come up. And we have to just tolerate that it's going to be there, and sometimes just hugging them and letting them know that you're there. We don't need to talk too much about it. But maybe they'd like to read the book on their own, have it by their bedside. So again, whatever's going to work for your family. And I think it's just trying it. I really like this See Inside Your Body. We actually have this book at home. My kids are older now, but when they were younger, they really loved it because you can lift the flap, you can see where, your appendix is or where your bladder is or what the blood looks like. So it's really cool depending on what procedure you're going for, and what will be happening. So again, just making it fun, educating them, and just finding the right fit. So the nice part sometimes about going into stores when you're able to do that, or the libraries, to kind of see what you like, what language you like. And sometimes there are ebooks and things like that as well. So it's just finding that right fit. Okay. And then other things is looking at actual pictures of what that procedure, not the procedure necessarily, like you don't want to go in, this is how an appendix comes out, but maybe what the operating room might look like. Can you get pictures of the operating room, depending on the websites? Sometimes some websites are fantastic for different children's hospitals, and they have little virtual tours that you can check out. A lot of, and again, it's pre-op as well, pre-operative. You can go in and they, I used to do that. I would prep children. I would show them what the operating room looked like. I talked to them about different ways that they will fall asleep, and that, this is what the room will be, and you'll see lots of machines, but not all of them will be for you. And using those play doctor sets, objects and toys from around the house that might be able to mimic, some of those medical things. Maybe some real medical supplies. Of course, you don't want to be using needles, but even just having like a syringe without the needle on it, a Band-Aid, gauze, it's fun. Let's play with the doll, let's play with the stuffed animal, let's practice some of these things. And again, it just makes it normalized, so it's not so scary, because we don't do this that often. So let's bring it into our everyday lives so it's not so scary when we have to do it. Yeah, just make it a game. So here are some examples of possibly what that would look like, right? So, what is an MRI? What's the difference between an MRI and a CAT scan? So what would the dentist room look like? Why do I have a dentist and someone that's going to clean my teeth? Do I have to lay all the way back? And I think sometimes that can be scary even for adults, to have to lay all the way back. So can I sit halfway up? Who can come into the room? What is an x-ray going to look like? What will it feel like? Why do I have to wear this vest? Why can't mom come in or dad come in? How long will it take? All those little things are just to reassure them. It doesn't make the procedure go perfectly, but it will go better than if we just go in there and just tell them to be quiet or just get this done. Don't worry about it. And sometimes that's our own stress, especially when we're going in for emergency things happening, our own stress can kind of take over. So different things that you can do to distract while the procedure is happening. Maybe bringing in the tablet, some music, a book, toys, fidget toys, something that will give them comfort, something to squeeze, like a stress ball. Bubbles, not all places will like you to use bubbles, because then it contaminates the space. So make sure you find out, but even in the car or on the way there, in the parking garage, maybe you could do some of those fun things. Positive coping statements. So what can I say instead? I can get through this. After we finish, then we're going to do something fun. I'm brave. And doing some relaxation. Now, relaxation is not something that you can do in the moment when you've never practiced it. So doing that ahead of time, all children need this. Everybody needs to know what helps them turn the volume down. When we tend to say, go and calm down, what does that mean? Calm down. I don't know what I'm doing to calm down. What are those activities that make them feel good? And what are the things that you can bring along with you? Because they may love kinetic sand, but it's not realistic to bring kinetic sand to a dentist appointment. Maybe they could have it in the car, it might be a little messy. So what are the other options? You can do the mindful meditation, you can do square breathing, teddy bear breathing, where you put the teddy bear on their belly. Just trying different things that are going to help them feel relaxed. And then we will talk about comfort holds and show you some pictures and also that mental imagery. So all things we will go over. I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. So here are some examples of some coping things that you can use. So this water tube is fun. I don't know if I haven't, I mean, my kids are older, so I don't know if they still make them, but they are fun. Just not when your child tries to stick their hand through that because they will rupture. So be careful, but they are kind of fun. I've also seen people do them with regular Ziploc bags, and you can put pom-poms in there. You could put some, like hair gel and glitter, and it's like a texture thing. It's kind of fun. And again, it's just about preoccupying them and what makes them feel good, right? So this is a calming tool. The Tangle Junior, they can actually wear on their wrist, and they just play with it and twist it around. And the glitter wand, you can create your own. I have one here that I created with, this is just glitter in there, right? This is a good way to explain emotion, that when we're really stressed out in the doctor's office, this is where we're at. So what is going to help us calm our emotions down? What's going to make us feel better? So when we are calm, that's when we're going to practice, because when our emotions start doing this, what is something that's going to make you feel better? Cuddles, using my Tangle Junior, listening to my music, or just sitting in silence. I just want you to cuddle with me. I don't want to talk about it. And the buzzing bee is kind of a cool thing. And it actually, there's a cool pack on it and it buzzes. So that is something that it kind of confuses your brain. So you could, without the buzzing bee, and I've had someone do this for me where they put the needle in, but then they scratch you somewhere else. So your brain is kind of like, I'm a little confused. So it's kind of cool, especially with the little ones that, the pain is really, they're really scared of the pain. So the buzzing bee vibrates, and it kind of confuses the brain as to what do I need to be feeling right now. So comfort holds are really important as well. I mentioned earlier how, even sitting in a dentist chair can be anxiety provoking because they put you back. It doesn't feel comfortable. So what do we do with our kids when they have to get a needle or a procedure done, and how we can hold them is better, because to have to restrain your child is not fun. And there's a kinder way to do this that has the child in mind as well, because some children, even if you go through all of this, their anxiety and their stress it just comes out and they start flailing, and it's really tough to put an IV in or try to give a needle or try to check, their eye or whatever when the child's flailing around. It's quite unsafe. But to have to hold a child down is not a fun experience. So if you're able to be proactive and do the restraint in a way that's more child friendly, it'll be a better experience. But again, you have to be on board, and depending on who the staff is and what that looks like, you may have to call ahead and see if it's possible and who's there to support. So there's the back to tummy, which is great. I mean, they've got lots of staff in there for that. It looks like they're probably taking blood, but the child is sitting on the parent's lap. And then we've got back to tummy with distraction, and they're sitting up on the gurney, so a little bit different. And then we've got extra help with the book, so again, how many people can come? Who can support you? Is there staff there that would be willing to even hold the book so we can look through the book while we do the procedure? And then we've got tummy to tummy, and again with distraction. So we've got the book reader, then we've got tummy to tummy, and then they can look for the vein, and the child is looking away. A lot of times they want to look and see what's going on, and they're watching the needle go in and they're freaking out, or they're watching the dressing change or the bandage change. And how helpful is that? Let's talk about that. What can we do to distract, right? And then the tummy to tummy. So this one, it looks like the child child is getting, we used to call it a nose hose, an NG tube for whatever reason, so this is another way. And then the other person is holding the child's head, but the child is feeling secure, and we can still keep the head still without feeling like the child's out of control, and that we are giving some comfort as well. So communication is key, understanding where your children are coming from and how can they express this. So the pain scales are pretty common. You can create your own, because if you're not going to be inpatient, and this might not be an issue, or you can bring your own stuff, right? It's kind of cool, do your own thing. Maybe you're going to put SpongeBob faces instead, or put your children's faces. Maybe they take a picture of each one, and that's kind of a fun activity to do. But really helping them understand what a 10 looks like, what does a 0 look like? And some children, their perception is off. They're not quite sure. They're talking and they're like, yeah, I'm at a 10 right now. And it's like, you wouldn't be able to talk through the pain. I'm wondering if this is more like a 4, right? So kind of using examples and kind of preparing and helping them understand what a 10 would look like, and what a 2 or a 3 might be. But a great way for them to communicate, so and then what can we do to support them? Sometimes we can't, but at least we know where their pain threshold is. And then, let's get a cool pack, let's play your music. So we already have those things kind of figured out. That we're not trying to do it in the moment. We've never practiced this relaxation technique, or we don't have a playlist together. We've already kind of worked on this and we're prepared. Okay, another option, right, for emotion, those thermometers, what are the emotions that are coming up for them? And every emotion has a purpose. So if I'm feeling angry right now, I'm frustrated, and I'm trying to push this person away, it's like I am setting boundaries here. I'm saying, no, stop. However, we usually have to continue on, and that's when it gets a little bit tough, when there's a procedure happening. So trying to get ahead of the behavior and support them is really important. So I think the theme is here, communication and preparation is key. Other things as well are visuals. I mean, it's really nice to look at pictures and things that make you feel happy. I mean, that little seal, I just smiled just looking at him. So bring your own pictures. That little bunny was somebody's pet, right? So that's one of my, back when I was working in the hospital, the girl had her pet, and she let me use the picture for these slides, but she would like to look at her bunny because it made her feel happy. So what is something they can look at and switch it up? And it could just be a simple thing, right? Could also be books as well. So like the I Spy books, or, looking for 101 things, so it keeps them occupied. The relaxation book is great. These books, the relaxation and stress reduction workbook, it's like a little workbook that they've got activities in there, they've got stretches, they've got lots of really cool things that you can use. So it's just finding the right fit. And this is an ebook. You might have other things at home that your children like. Sometimes they like to bring their own blanket or their own pillow, something that's of a comfort to them, to the procedure. But again, preparing and just having a different variety and trying something new. Okay. And again, those visuals, doing some mental imagery. So imagining you're on the beach, and you're in that balloon. What can you see? What do you feel? What do you smell? Using, the senses, doing a guided meditation. Those are easily downloaded, or you can find them on YouTube. But again, it's a lot of prep and finding the right ones. And maybe being creative, make up a story, make a collage, make a picture book of things that make them happy. Maybe they love going to the cottage, and then, we can make a picture book of the cottage because that makes me happy, and remembering the sun, and remembering the beach, and remembering the smell of the muffins we made, or something like that. And this is just our resource where you can find more of our courses. And again, if you're looking for an assessment, Contact Hamilton would be the place that you'd be going to. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I'm Marika. I didn't do the intro, but I am the other project coordinator, and I was co-moderating the session with Louise. I just wanted to do a quick wrap up and a big thank you to Michelle and Sue, who is not here today. But we will have. Oh, sorry, Louise had a question. Does anyone have a particular scenario that they are dealing with that anyone would like to share? Feel free to do so in the chat. In the meantime, I just wanted to let all of you know that our resource page will be updated with all the different links for the books that were shared today, as well as the recording of this session.
Yeah, I do see that there is a question here. So 7-year-old had recent episodes of fainting, once after an extensive dental procedure, another following blood work, had lots of conversations as to what to expect. She was very brave during both procedures. She faints at the end when we're leaving. It seems like her body just shuts down due to stress. Are there strategies you can suggest for after a procedure in the hope we can avoid future episodes? Yeah. Fainting is, that's a good question about the fainting. I don't know what is going on with the body when we do faint, but it just probably is just too much, right? It's too much going on. And sometimes these children just hold it together. So it really is just being prepared, and it is kind of scary for us. The kids are fine, they're fainting, they're okay. But, is this her stress? And a lot of times, yeah, this is what happens, right? Like our body reacts in ways that you think, why? Why do you get the eye twitch? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Well, it's our body telling us something is up. So trying to break it down a little bit more, trying to support her. Maybe she's not eating that well that day because she is stressed. So maybe we need to give her that protein shake or something like that, and making sure that she's hydrated and eating. And I think practicing more. Can you go and drive by the dentist? I know now we can't do that, but even just being in those environments and having some positive experiences, that it's not so traumatic for them. It sounds like you're doing a lot of things right, and then the end result is not what you anticipated. But I think that's what happens with stress and anxiety, is that we sometimes do all these great things, all this great prep, and then there's still a meltdown. However, it doesn't mean that you did the wrong thing. It's just that the stress and anxiety just got really high. So you may have to do a little bit more with her. Maybe if there's an anxiety here, there's probably anxieties other places. So pushing your child outside of their comfort zone in other stressful situations, instead of, we try to protect and wrap our arms around our kids and protect them, but then are we helping them prepare for things, right? So finding that bit of a, the balance of, let's help her push out of her comfort zone, ordering her own donut instead of just doing it for her, right? For some kids, it's super anxiety provoking. That's going to help her be in distress and learn a little bit of that discomfort and how to handle it in a gentle way. Because going to the dentist, having a procedure is like, we're dropping you into the deep end if you've got a child that's anxious and stressed out. So doing those little things might help. And then what does she do when she's feeling at a 5 instead of holding it together, and then she's at a 12 and faints? Right? So it's not an easy answer, but a lot of it is just practicing and giving them opportunity to be stressed out and anxious, and then help them through that. So I hope that was helpful. I've got more questions here. They're coming. I didn't see them here. So how do you deal with a child that's frightened in spite of all efforts, needs to attend a different dentist that puts her to sleep? Yeah, so There are some children that are just, yeah, like they're really scared, and sometimes they do need, that silly juice or the sedative or something that's going to help them feel a little more calm. I mean, I used to work for a dentist that had a child life specialist, and then went on to have different support systems. So the kids had a little more exposure to seeing. They would have puppets that had teeth, and they would brush the teeth, and they'd look at things. And so there was a little more work. So it could be finding a dentist that's a little more child friendly, and maybe we'll have some prep for the child. Ideally, we want to be going and having a good experience. So again, stopping by, being able to sit in the chair. Not everybody is going to be okay with that, and we can't do that now. But when things open up, to do that, because it's just really about being in the situation, and feeling uncomfortable, but then leaving on a positive note. So each time you go back, hopefully you'll have a better experience. And some children are just very anxious about certain things. And again, it's pushing them out of their comfort zone and other things, because probably if it's this bad for these procedures for the dentist, it's probably anxiety for other things that are coming up in their lives, not just this, right? So working with the staff, and sometimes the kids do have to be, to be put to sleep. Not a good word, but but they do have to have the anesthetic, and sometimes that's just the reality. But can we work towards doing like cleaning, teeth cleaning, and things like that? Maybe break it up. A whole hour is too long. Can we do it in shorter visits? Again, just doing a little bit of problem solving and brainstorming with your child, and then how do we kind of practice that and work with the staff and see what they're able to do, right? Pre-appointment prep, comforting during a previous post. Yeah, so you did all the right things, and I think sometimes it's just really hard, right? Because we've got children that are really anxious, and then we think, well, there's no point in doing this. We did all this work and it still didn't work. It's just right now, and the child is young, and the more that we do this, eventually you're not going to have to go through this. Some children are just more work and are just more anxious. So again, working on the anxiety provoking things outside of dentists and doctors and giving them prep, working on things to help them calm down, pushing them outside of their comfort zone, and then just knowing that these efforts are not a waste of time, that eventually your child will be able to go to the dentist without needing an anesthetic. And but for some adults, it's really anxiety provoking. So the fact that you're doing all these things is wonderful. I think it just can feel a little bit defeating, where you think like, this is supposed to work, but it can take a long time to go through it. So don't give up. And if you're able to get more dentist and doctor time, I don't know how that would work for you, but it might help just with that practice and exposure. Okay. My child is uncomfortable with the drilling sounds and sensations. Yeah, so the drilling sound, can they bring in headphones? Can they bring in, noise canceling headphones? Can they just listen to the drill? You could probably find those drill sounds on the internet. And just listen to them. So it's just tolerating it. It's like some children don't even like to go to the bathroom in a public place because the flush is so loud, and it's actually going in and flushing a toilet even if you don't have to go. So again, it's just more practice and hearing it. Sensation, sometimes it just sucks. Yeah, I don't love it either. It's just being able to tolerate it. And it's not going to be a 0 out of 10, but it was actually a 6, right? And I thought it was going to be like a 12 out of 10. So looking at the effort and trying to support them through those, and just acknowledging the fact that you did it, even though you didn't feel like doing it. And sometimes that just doesn't go away, right? So yes, child life specialists, it depends on what clinic you do go to, but there are a lot of child life specialists that are affiliated with clinics. So it would be calling ahead and finding out, depending on the schedules and things like that. But they're everywhere. When I started out in child life, I don't even want to tell you how many years ago. It was very, very small. There wasn't a lot of us, but we're in Emerge. Child life is all over the hospital and at different hospitals as well. It just depends on the hospital and the amount that they have. So if they've got one child life specialist for 2 wards, then usually they only see certain people. In the clinics, it's the same thing. They may be designated for certain appointments, but I would always
think they came in as you were sharing or responding to the questions as well. But thank you, Michelle, for being to all of them. I believe we covered all. And so, like I said earlier, the resource page will be shared with the recording, as well as, and the slides will be there as well. And Louise shared that she will share all the links to the books as well on the resource page. Yeah, the questions definitely came in. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thanks, everyone.